Today we're doing something a little different. We're taking a look back, over 3 years ago, to the second Let's Play that I ever did on the channel, which involved one of probably my favorite strategy games of all time. Today, we're taking a look back at Phoenix Point.
It's taking their minds. I saw them walk right into the sea. Thousands of people. Thousands.
Hello everyone, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and if you know anything about me, you know that I love strategy games. Obviously, if you've been around for the past 6 months on the channel, it's almost exclusively what we've covered here. But we didn't get our start with strategy games with Tactics Ogre and a little bit of coverage of things like Last Spell and stuff like that. No. No, the second game I ever played on the channel was a little game called Phoenix Point. Now, if you don't know what Phoenix Point is, the closest analog that I can draw is the new series of XCOM games that have come out. We're talking XCOM Enemy Within, XCOM 2 or The Chosen, and then XCOM Chimera Squad, which are 3 games by Firaxis, which are themselves remakes or reimagining, I suppose, of the original XCOM series of games from way back in the day. And there's a reason that this is so similar. So Phoenix Point is made by one Julian Gollop and his team at Snapshot Games, who is one of the original, I'm not entirely sure, creators of the original XCOM series of strategy games. So when I heard that that team was making this game, I was super excited to get into it. And for good reason, because it's really good. Like I said, the original Let's Play was over 3 years ago, but I've recently been replaying the game just in my own time, because a bunch of DLC has come out, a bunch of balance patches and changes and things like that, optimizations, quality of life things have come out, and I wanted to revisit it because I unfortunately never got the chance to actually finish my Let's Play back in the day. I had a weird save issue where my whole save got deleted very late in the campaign. It would have taken forever for me to get back to where I was, and nothing would have been the same anyway because of the way the meta game develops and world events develop. So I wrote it off and planned to maybe come back to it someday, and never found myself having the chance, which was very unfortunate. That said, as I've been replaying the game in my own time, I've come to the conclusion that as much as I love the XCOM series of games, and I really do, I am waiting and hoping for Firaxis to put out something about XCOM 3 sometime in the near future now that they're done with Marvel Midnight Suns. Who knows what's going to happen with that, but even so, if I look at my time with XCOM 1 and 2 and compare it to my time with Phoenix Point, I think I legitimately enjoy my time with Phoenix Point more, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Now, if you're not familiar with XCOM or this type of strategy game in general, the idea is, as you can see from the gameplay footage I have going in the background, you have a semi-isometric map, you move your characters around, it's an action point-based system, so different actions take different amount of action points, from moving, reloading, shooting, using abilities, all that type of stuff. But what's fun is every character that you recruit comes with a class, right? And as you level them up, you can choose to cross-class with other classes in the game. And there's probably something like 7 or 8 different classes, I think, and they all have different skills that you can mix and match to do different stuff. They all have different armor proficiencies, weapon proficiencies, all that type of stuff. So it's very customizable, and you can really build out different teams to meet the requirements that you have personally or that you have for a mission. And I very much enjoy how freeform Phoenix Point is, because in something like XCOM, a character would have a class, and that character would then have abilities that they could learn, but you couldn't really mix classes like you can in Phoenix Point. So it evokes in me feelings of things like Final Fantasy Tactics, where you can have different class abilities mixed in to kind of build your ideal class. In both XCOM and Phoenix Point, we're fighting alien invasions. XCOM from space, Phoenix Point from the seas. And that's something you might have caught from my little intro clip of the cinematic that I took. The idea here is that we are actually fighting a Lovecraftian menace. Horrifying, mutated sea monsters that have come up out of the sea, destroyed human civilization, and we're left to pick through the rubble with the last few kind of civilizations that have cropped up since then, and try to make sense of it all, try to survive, figure out what happened, and how to beat the, as it's called, Pandora virus back. And as far as story beats and aesthetic and mood are concerned, I do enjoy this a lot more than the more standard sci-fi aliens approach that XCOM takes. That's still fun, but I love dark body horror, creepy mind control, dreams, mythos type of stuff. And Phoenix Point has that in spades, which I think is so cool. We have the influence on humanity of this alien virus as it mutates other humans into these creatures, and there's this psychic web that starts to grow and change people and affect the way they behave. And you can actually see on the world map, the mist expands across the world, and those zones become infested and incredibly dangerous, and worse creatures come out of it. And that's one of the things that I like the most about Phoenix Point, is that as the game progresses, enemies don't just evolve in that they get better classes and you get scarier enemies. Enemies literally evolve over time. Like a basic Chiron starts off as just like, he's a funky little crab guy. Over time, though, they evolve in ways to counteract the way that you play specifically. If you like to rush up with assaults with rifles to try and bring enemies down before they can set up positions, anything like that, they'll evolve tougher carapace. They'll have shields, make it harder for you to get around them and get good shots on them. If you like to try and snipe from a distance, maybe they'll develop stealth technology. They'll develop stealth capabilities so it's harder to see them, or they'll have better cover or higher armor on specific body parts so you can't just snipe body parts off, stuff like that. So no playthrough is going to be the same, because the way you play influences the way the game evolves. Something else that I really enjoy in terms of the gameplay differences between XCOM and Phoenix Point is the fact that in XCOM, your fate really is beholden to the RNG. And I mean, it's a meme for a reason. People talk about XCOM RNG all day, every day, because, man, you seem to miss an alarmingly high number of 95% chances to hit compared to what you feel like you should. In Phoenix Point, taking shots and figuring out what you're going to attack where is a very different beast, because you actually get to manually aim each and every shot that you take. Every weapon has its own reticle type. Every different soldier has different accuracy, different capabilities. Some weapons are direct fire, some have an arc like grenade launchers. Shotguns have a wide spread, rifles have a smaller spread, sniper rifles even smaller spread. And you can actually choose what body parts you want to shoot at. Think things like Dead Space, think the VATS system in Fallout, stuff like that. And that's actually important, because sometimes you're not going to be able to just down an enemy outright. You're just not going to have the firepower to pull it off. You're just not. But they have maybe a very dangerous gun, and then, say, a mind control piece on their head, or an acid-spitting arm, or a shield. You can look at those individual body parts, depending on the angle that you have, depending on the weapon that you have, and actually try to shoot them off, disable them, which will cause bleeding on the enemy. They'll take damage over time. You'll be able to neutralize specific aspects of their combat kit, so that even if you can't take them down in the moment, you can at least try to neutralize the aspect of their kit that is potentially going to cause you the most harm. And that's so cool to me. Like, I wish I could go into XCOM and shoot off or disable a sectoid's head. Maybe not killing it in the process, but at the very least preventing it from mind controlling one of my units. That's huge. It's such a game changer, and it means that your lines of fire, your angles, your perspectives, how close or far away you are, because that affects your accuracy, again, depending on your weapon type. All of those things feel much more relevant in Phoenix Point than they do in something like XCOM, where it's just like, well, how can I manipulate my accuracy to be as high as possible? Like, yes, you can still lose, quote-unquote, to the RNG in Phoenix Point, because, well, there was a section of the reticle that clearly wasn't on the enemy, and that happened to be where the majority of my bullets went. It happens. But that was at least your choice. You got to say, okay, I can see exactly how likely this is to land or not land, and make an informed decision as a result, instead of just putting my fate in the hands of an 80% and seeing what happens. That just feels so much better to me. Another aspect of the evolution of the game that I really enjoy is the factions system. So in Phoenix Point, you have 3 factions. And this is something that you do see in other things like XCOM War of the Chosen. You've got the Reapers and the Skirmishers and the Templars. But the way it's handled in Phoenix Point is much more integral to the way the overall story develops and the way the overall game develops. So you have your 3 factions. You've got New Jericho, Sanhedrin, and the Disciples of Anu. And each one has a very different ideology and approach to the threat of the Pandora virus and the ongoing apocalypse of human society. New Jericho, very standard. High-power military, kind of pseudo-American culture, higher tech, but still very grounded in reality, and has a very realistic viewpoint as a result. The Pandora virus is a threat. It needs to be eliminated. The effect that it has on human will and on the human body is abhorrent, and it cannot be allowed. Then you look at something like Sanhedrin, much more high-tech. They've put a lot more time and effort into developing new, weird, esoteric technologies, not too afraid to experiment and go outside the scope of normal humanity in order to try and find a way to, if not overcome the Pandora virus, at least coexist with it. Then finally, you have the Disciples of Anu, who are super cool because they are actually a religion that views not the Pandorans themselves, but the overall idea of the Pandora virus as the next step in human evolution. Something to be embraced, controlled, but embraced. Evolution is the key. Our bodies are frail, and we need to grow beyond what we are to overcome the flood of the Pandora virus itself. Kind of a kill or be killed, let the Pandorans win, or use what they offer to improve ourselves and prove that we're worthy of it to ascend to the next level of humanity. And as you can see, they have a lot of weird mutated humans with like grown carapace armor and big melee weapons. You have a lot more of like a medieval feudal system here with acolytes and berserkers and priests and all sorts of weird stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. And I've seen some people say that that clash of different aesthetics and societal shifts doesn't make sense. But from a gameplay perspective, it adds so much variety to every mission and the way you build your teams and the way you interact with everything around you. Not only does it bring a lot to the table in terms of gameplay and variety, but the factions are also vitally important to the way the game develops. So basically, you start off, and as the Phoenix Point operative commander, you have very few resources available to you. You've got like one base, your whole organization fell apart in the collapse of humanity, but you're also one of the only people who has access to records that shows how you might be able to defeat the Pandora virus. Okay, cool. But we need allies. We need resources. That's where the other factions come in. You have relationships with each of them, and they each have relationships with each other. And a big chunk of the earlier game, and the late game, but a big chunk of the early game in particular, is discovering where their havens are. Talking with them, building relations with them, doing starter missions for them, learning about them, and deciding, based off of what technology you want, because you'll be able to get their technology from them as you become allied with them, where their bases are, how they're interacting with each other, who you want to spend your time focusing on trying to build a diplomatic relationship with. As you do that, you may very well wind up sacrificing your relationship with other factions to make it happen, and also you might find it very hard to balance because they will quickly come to blows with each other. They don't agree with each other's philosophies, they don't agree with each other's approaches, and if you let things devolve enough, or if enough time passes and you just can't manage it anymore, they will go to war with each other as well as the Pandorans, and things will just devolve into chaos. And again, it makes each campaign so interesting, because you never know who you're going to find where, what opportunities you're going to be presented to potentially curry favor with one faction over another, how that's going to affect your combat abilities because of the technology that you can get and the types of recruits you can get, even what resources are available to you. And having to adapt to that on the fly keeps things fresh for so long. Now, I know I've been singing the game's praises a lot here, but it does have its issues. If you don't know what you're doing, difficulty can scale out of control really fast. Some of the DLC that I haven't used yet, I've heard is actually kind of unbalanced and can make things even harder than it already is. And there's been a lot of balance changes over time in terms of the way certain abilities work, certain classes work, the way the factions interact with each other, the way Pandorans evolve. that some people like more than others. But as far as I'm concerned, the Phoenix Point of 2023 feels far and away better to play than the Phoenix Point of 2020. And I already really enjoyed the Phoenix Point of 2020. Again, I find the gameplay variety that it brings to the table makes it endlessly replayable compared to something like XCOM that I've had to resort to mods to continue to get enjoyment out of. The overall mood and vibe and aesthetic and story of Phoenix Point is far more interesting to me, far more engaging to me. And just the depth of customization and, in a way, build crafting that you can do in Phoenix Point baseline, no mods needed, blows XCOM out of the water. And I'm not making this video to be like a comparing XCOM to Phoenix Point thing, but I have so many hours across the 3 modern XCOM games. So many hours. So it's kind of driving the point home when I do truly believe that I enjoy Phoenix Point far more than I enjoy XCOM, even as much as I enjoy XCOM. So I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say. I could talk about this game for hours. There's a ton to go into, but I really just kind of wanted to shine a light on what I truly think is an underrated, underappreciated gem in the strategy RPG genre. And I would say that it is a strategy RPG because of the way that you can customize your teams and customize your relationships with the factions. So if you're at all interested in things like XCOM, or if you've been at all interested in the footage that you've been seeing on screen as I've been talking about stuff, you can find it on Steam. Pretty sure it's on consoles. I know it's on the Xbox store because I played it on Game Pass originally. And it's an awesome pickup. Get the base game first because the DLCs can be quite tough. See if you like it. I think it has just endless hours of fun, and I've been very much enjoying my playthrough of it, even though I've just been, playing it on my own time. That said, I am considering, once I get far enough in the campaign and I'm near the end, I think I might actually stream or do episodes of my current playthrough to kind of wrap up that old Let's Play, seeing as how it's always just been left dangling, and every once in a while get people asking, hey, were you ever planning on finishing this? And I'd like to. I would really like to. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So it wouldn't be the same campaign with the same characters. Any of you who are familiar with that campaign, I'm sorry, that's just not something that's feasible for me to pull off, but I think it would at least be nice to see the end and see the way things shake out for you and for me, since I've never finished it either. So if you guys would be interested in that, let me know. It's definitely something I've been toying around with the idea of doing. And if y'all have any questions about Phoenix Point, or you'd like to see it on the channel, if it'd be something that would be interesting to you in a larger capacity, let me know. Because I love this game. And I think it could be a lot of fun to play for and with you guys. That said, I'm going to wrap this one up here. Thank you for watching. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. If you didn't know about Phoenix Point, or you liked hearing me talk about it, leave a like on the video, consider subscribing. It would help me out a lot. I'm trying to get to 15K subs by the end of the year. I'm doing my damnedest to grow the channel as much as I can, because it's my livelihood. So if you could help me out with that, it would be very much appreciated. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. Stick around for the sponsors roll. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.